Okay, so get this. Imagine just thinking something, and boom, it appears on your screen. Sound like sci-fi, right?
It does sound like that,
Oh,
but
sure.
Meta AI is getting us closer to that reality with their incredible brain detects technology.
Absolutely. And what's even cooler is that they're not talking about those like invasive brain implants we always see in the movies.
Right.
This is all about using external brain scans to translate thoughts into text. No surgery required.
Exactly. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, we're diving into a bunch of research summaries and articles on this today, and I'm already feeling a little mind blown, to be honest.
Yeah, it's definitely a major leap forward.
Uh,
Meta's research team, they've trained an AI to decode brain signals while people are typing sentences, essentially teaching it to recognize the patterns of brain activity that are associated with specific words.
So it's not like the AI is magically reading our minds, right?
Right.
It's more like it's recognizing patterns, kind of like learning a new language, the language of brainwaves.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so how do they even see what's happening in the brain?
Well, I know they're using something called MEG and EEG, but I'm a little fuzzy on what the difference is between the two.
Yeah, so they're both non-invasive ways to measure brain activity, but MEG is kind of like a high-definition vision versus standard definition.
Okay.
MEG, it actually detects the subtle magnetic fields that are generated by the electrical activity in the brain. So it gives you a much richer, more detailed picture than EEG, which measures electrical activity directly from the scalp.
So a MEG gives a clearer picture, but I'm guessing it's probably more complex and expensive.
Exactly. MEG needs a special shielded room to
Hmm.
block out any external magnetic fields, which makes it a lot less accessible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
EEG, on the other hand, is a lot more portable and widely available, but you do sacrifice some detail in terms of accuracy.
Gotcha. So it's kind of like comparing a professional camera to a smartphone camera, right? You get what you pay for.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
But here's what I find really interesting about this whole thing. It's not just about decoding words, right?
Right.
This research is giving us clues about how we think. Absolutely. That's a key point here.
Mhm.
Meta's research is revealing fascinating insights into how our brains actually construct language.
So how does that work?
It all comes down to something called hierarchical neural dynamics.
Yeah.
Our brains don't just process language in a simple linear way. It's a much more layered and complex process.
Okay, break that down for me. What does hierarchical neural dynamics actually mean?
Well, imagine you're building a house.
Yeah.
You start with a blueprint, right? That's like the abstract thought you want to express.
Yeah.
Then you lay the foundation that's kind of like figuring out the grammatical structure of the sentence. And finally, you add the bricks and mortar, the specific words themselves.
Yeah.
Our brains are actually doing all of this, simultaneously juggling multiple levels of information to create a coherent sentence.
Wow, that analogy really makes it click. So our brains are basically like orchestra conductors, managing all these different layers of thought at once to produce a single harmonious sentence.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It
Yeah.
really is a remarkable feat of neural orchestration.
So how accurate is this technology? Like, how well can it actually predict what someone is thinking?
Well, the accuracy is actually pretty impressive.
Okay.
Using MEG, they've managed to reach up to 80% accuracy at the character level.
80%. So the AI can predict with a high degree of accuracy the actual letters that someone is thinking about.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
That's wild, but I'm guessing there are still some limitations to this technology, right?
Of course, as we've discussed, MEG needs a very specific controlled environment, which makes it difficult to use in everyday situations.
Right.
Plus, the research has only been done on healthy individuals so far,
Yeah.
so we don't yet know how it might work for people with neurological conditions.
That's a really important point, and I imagine the vocabulary used in these studies is still pretty limited too, right?
Yeah.
Like you probably can't just think about some complex philosophical treatise and have the AI spit it out perfectly.
Not yet, at least. But there's a lot of work ahead to expand the vocabulary and complexity of what can be decoded.
But even with these limitations, the potential applications are still vast and incredibly exciting.
Absolutely.
So what kind of future is this technology pointing towards?
Well, imagine a world where people with severe speech impairments, people who haven't been able to communicate conventionally,
Yeah.
they can suddenly share their thoughts and feelings effortlessly using a brain-computer interface.
It's like giving voice to those who have been silenced, and not just for basic needs, but for expressing their creativity, telling stories, even writing poetry.
Exactly.
What else? What other possibilities are there?
Think about the future of human-computer interaction. Imagine controlling your devices with your thoughts. No more fumbling with remotes or keyboards.
Oh my gosh.
This technology could revolutionize how we interact with the digital world.
That's a serious game changer.
It is. It really is.
It feels like we're on the verge of something truly transformative here.
I think we are. This technology could even lead to a deeper understanding of language disorders. By understanding how the brain processes language, we might be able to diagnose and treat conditions like aphasia much more effectively.
It seems like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible with this technology.
Absolutely.
But as we continue to push the boundaries of what we can do, we need to be mindful of the ethical implications too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Decoding thoughts raises some really important questions about privacy and consent.
Huge questions, right?
It's crucial that we consider the ethical aspects alongside the scientific advancements.
So, like, who has access to our thoughts? Can this technology be used responsibly, or could it be abused? It's a powerful tool that demands careful consideration as it develops.
You're exactly right. This is a conversation that needs to happen alongside the scientific progress involving not just scientists, but ethicists, policymakers, and the public as well.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here already, from how this technology works to its potential applications and the ethical considerations that come with it, but there's still so much more to explore.
There is.
What's coming up in the next part of our deep dive?
Well, we've talked about the what and the why, but next we need to delve deeper into the how. We'll unpack the technical details of brain detect systems, exploring the different components and how they work together to decode those complex brain signals.
Can't wait to dive into that. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Before the break, we were talking about the potential of brain detect technology, this amazing ability to translate thoughts into written words using brain scans.
It was definitely mind-blowing stuff. We talked about MEG and EEG, those non-invasive brain scanning techniques and how they can be used to pick up signals from the brain. But I'm curious what other brain scanning techniques are out there and could they be used for this kind of technology?
That's a great question. Researchers are also exploring the use of fMRI, which stands for Functional Magnetic Resonance Imaging.
fMRI.
fMRI is interesting because it measures brain activity by detecting changes in blood flow, so it gives us a slightly different perspective on what's happening in the brain.
So fMRI is like looking at the brain's fuel supply,
Hmm.
seeing where the activity is happening based on where the blood is flowing.
Exactly. But fMRI does have its limitations while it offers excellent spatial resolution, meaning it can pinpoint the location of brain activity with great accuracy. It's a much slower technique compared to MEG and EEG.
So it's not as good at capturing those rapid-fire thought processes that happen in a split second.
Right, it's a trade-off, and fMRI also requires a large, powerful magnet, which makes it even less portable than MEG. So while it's a valuable research tool, it's not the most practical option for everyday brain detect applications.
That makes sense. So for now, it seems like MEG and EEG are the front runners for this technology, but I'm still a bit fuzzy on how it all works on a technical level. I mean, the brain is incredibly complex. How do they make sense of all those signals and translate them into actual words?
You're right, the brain is incredibly complex. Billions of neurons are firing all the time, and we're only able to capture a small fraction of that activity. It's like trying to understand the entire internet by looking at a single website.
Okay, so we have these brain scans, these snapshots of activity, but how do we go from those snapshots to understanding what someone is thinking?
Think of it like this. The brain scans are like raw audio recordings, full of background noise and static to get to the clear speech you need to filter out all that noise. That's where sophisticated signal processing algorithms come into play. They help us clean up the brain scan data and extract the meaningful signals related to language.
So it's like having a super-powered audio editor for brainwaves.
Exactly. And once we have those clean signals, we use artificial intelligence, specifically machine learning, to do the heavy lifting of actually translating them into text.
Okay, but how do you teach an AI to read brainwaves? It's not like you can just hand it a dictionary of brain activity.
It's more about showing the AI lots and lots of examples. Researchers train the AI using massive data sets of brain activity paired with the corresponding text. So, for example, they might have someone read a sentence aloud while their brain activity is being recorded. The AI then learns to associate those patterns of brain activity with the specific words being spoken.
So it's like teaching the AI by repetition. The more examples it sees, the better it gets at recognizing the patterns and making the connections between brain activity and language.
Precisely, it's a continuous learning process. And as the AI is exposed to more data, it becomes more accurate and sophisticated in its ability to decode thoughts.
This is incredible, but I have to ask, even with all this advanced technology, are there still challenges in translating thoughts into text? I mean, we're talking about decoding something as complex as human thought. There have to be limitations, right?
You're absolutely right. One of the biggest challenges is the variability between individuals. Each brain is unique, And the way one person's brain encodes language might be slightly different from another person's.
So it's not like there's a universal brain language that we can just plug into?
Unfortunately not. That's why researchers are working on developing personalized brain-to-text systems that can be tailored to each individual. It's like custom fitting a suit.
Yeah.
You need to account for all the unique quirks and nuances of that person's brain to make the technology truly effective.
That makes a lot of sense. It sounds like we've made some impressive progress in this field, but there's still so much we're learning about the brain and how it works.
Absolutely. This is just the beginning. We're only scratching the surface of what's possible with brain-to-text technology.
It's both exciting and a little bit daunting to think about what the future holds. We've talked about some of the incredible potential applications of this technology, but there are also some ethical considerations that we need to address, right?
You're right. As this technology becomes more powerful and more widespread, we need to have open and honest conversations about how to use it responsibly and ethically.
We need to make sure we're using it to empower individuals, not to control or exploit them.
Exactly. This technology has the potential to change our lives in profound ways, but it's up to us to ensure that those changes are for the better.
This has been an incredible deep dive so far. I'm already looking forward to hearing more about these ethical considerations and what the future might hold for this technology.
Well, you're in luck. That's exactly what we'll be exploring in the next part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been on quite a journey exploring the world of brain-to-text technology.
It has been quite a journey.
From how this AI learns to decode brain signals to all the potential applications, but like we were discussing before, this technology raises some serious ethical questions. We've touched on some of them, but I think we need to dig a little deeper.
I agree. We're essentially talking about reading minds, even if it is through sophisticated algorithms and brain scans,
Right.
and that brings up all sorts of considerations about privacy and consent.
Exactly. If our thoughts are no longer truly private, does that change how we think? Do we start to censor ourselves knowing that our thoughts could potentially be accessed?
That's a really crucial question. It raises the possibility of what we call a chilling effect on free thought.
A chilling effect.
Yeah, imagine a world where people are afraid to think certain thoughts because they're worried about those thoughts being read or misinterpreted.
That's kind of scary. It sounds like something out of a dystopian novel. That kind of mental surveillance could have a devastating impact on individual freedom and creativity.
Absolutely. It's definitely a scenario we need to avoid.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to establish clear ethical guidelines and legal protections around the use of this technology. People need to have the right to mental privacy, just as they have the right to privacy in their physical lives.
It makes you wonder, if technology keeps advancing in this direction, where do we draw the line?
Finding that line is going to be one of the biggest challenges we face in the coming years. Sure. We need to balance the potential benefits of this technology with the need to protect individual rights and freedoms.
It's a tough one, but it's not just about external forces potentially accessing our thoughts.
Right.
This technology also raises questions about our relationship with our own minds.
You're absolutely right. If we can externalize our thoughts so easily, simply by thinking them, does that change how we process and reflect on those thoughts?
It's interesting to think about. I wonder if it could make us less introspective. Instead of taking time to think things through, to wrestle with complex ideas internally, we might just blurt them out, almost like a constant stream of consciousness being projected onto a screen.
It's a really interesting thought. Think about the difference between keeping a private journal and posting all your thoughts on social media.
Yeah.
One encourages deep reflection. The other often leads to more superficial thinking. Could this technology push us more towards the latter?
That's a great analogy. And if our thoughts are constantly being externalized, do we lose some of the richness of our inner world?
These are some really profound questions, and we don't have all the answers yet.
Right.
But it's crucial that we have these conversations, that we consider the potential impact of this technology on our minds and on society as a whole.
I completely agree. This technology is fascinating and it holds incredible potential, but it also demands that we proceed thoughtfully and carefully. We need to be asking these tough questions and engaging in open dialogues about the ethical implications.
I couldn't agree more. We need to involve not just scientists and engineers, but also ethicists, philosophers, legal experts, and the public in these discussions.
This whole thing really feels like we're at a crossroads entering uncharted territory, where the boundaries between our minds and the outside world are becoming increasingly blurred. It's exciting and a little bit unnerving.
It is, but one thing is clear. This is a topic that deserves our attention. This technology is evolving rapidly, and we need to be prepared for the challenges and opportunities it presents.
Well, this deep dive has certainly given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
We've covered so much the science behind this technology, the potential benefits, and the ethical challenges we face as it continues to develop.
It's been a fascinating exploration, and I hope our listeners are walking away with a newfound understanding of this incredible technology and the complex questions it raises.
I think they are, and while we don't have all the answers, I think the most important takeaway is that we need to be having these conversations. We need to be thinking critically about the implications of this technology and working together to ensure that it's used responsibly and ethically.
Well said. The future is full of possibilities, and it's up to us to shape that future in a way that benefits humanity as a whole.
That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the world of brain-to-text technology. Until next time, keep those minds active, engaged, and curious.